We will have Mr. Rendon present. I would also want to, if you are a staffer and you have a bill up in Natural Resources, you should send your author down to Natural Resources. We have done many bills, but we still have 30 left to go. You can start with either one.
Do 1490?
I'll help on both.
Thank you. We'll begin with, I'm going to do 1490 and AB 1501 together, Mr. Chair. In the interest of time and given our committee's agenda, I'm going to take up both AB 1490 and AB 1501. Both are both fracking bills right now. AB 1490 limits fracking related to earthquakes, and AB 1501 requires emission standards and air quality monitoring for fracking and all oil drilling facilities. These two environmental impacts from fracking, earthquakes and air quality, have not received the attention they deserve. It is high time that the legislature bring these two items to the forefront of the fracking discussion because they can affect all our constituents. In California, we don't need to learn that earthquakes create problems in our constituents' lives. We know that they can destroy homes, injure people, and put communities in chaos. The connection between fracking and what are so-called induced earthquakes also has growing recognition in the science community. After a well has been fracked with water and chemicals, that fluid comes back as wastewater from the well. The drillers have to do something with that wastewater. In many states, the frackers inject that wastewater back into the ground, as they did in Ohio, which accepted wastewater from fracking in Pennsylvania. The U.S. Geological Survey has this to say about that injection of wastewater from fracking. The increase in seismic activity has been found to coincide with the injection of wastewater in deep disposal wells in several locations, including Colorado, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Ohio. I also draw to the committee members' attention the story, I believe it was this morning, from yesterday's New York Times, where the state of Oklahoma has acknowledged the relationship between fracking and earthquakes. There is ongoing research on the effects of injecting fracking fluid into the earth to break up shale formations, which may lead to earthquakes. As that science proceeds, AB 1490 puts a hold on fracking within 10 miles of active earthquake faults, and also if an earthquake occurs near a fracking location. In effect, this hold would affect about 54% of California's oil drilling, but only as to fracking, not the drilling itself. AB 1501 addresses air quality related to oil drilling. Oil wells are all over California, sometimes even right next to schools. I've heard that at least one school has an oil well right on campus. California has started looking more closely at the effects of air quality from oil extraction activities. This new fracking regulation requires an air quality permit if one is required, though no air district requires a permit at this time. CARB is studying the effect on methane emissions from oil drilling. By the way, methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide in trapping heat on Earth, leading to climate change. My bill takes the next step. It requires local air districts to set an emission standard for methane from oil extraction facilities. Then it requires oil drillers to get a permit from the local air district for those emissions, and requires drillers to provide air emissions monitoring for a number of pollutants. AB 1501 does not stop fracking, but only creates a regulatory process to protect Californians from the negative air pollution impacts from oil drilling. Taken together, AB 1490 and AB 1501 moves California into a leadership position on these two fracking-related issues, earthquakes and air quality. They put a hold on fracking in earthquake areas, and they require further analysis and assessment of air pollution emissions coming from fracking and other oil drilling facilities. The time to act to protect Californians is now from this potentially harmful effects of fracking. I ask for your aye vote on both AB 1490 and AB 1501.
Thank you. So your witnesses in support, please.
I'm Bill Alia with the Environmental Group and also representing the other supporters who signed on to a group letter for 1490, and Mr. Grinberg will address 1501. On 1490, in 2011, when I got involved with the issue of fracking, the Division of Oil, Gas, Geothermal Resources, we considered talking about an insertion of requirements about seismicity. During that year period, I talked to Lucy Jones, a leading seismologist at Caltech and works for the U.S. Geological Survey. She said it's difficult to tease out background earthquakes with what the industry is doing. But since that time, we've had clearly, as the analysis points out, a number of induced earthquakes from injection, waste injection in a number of states. It's a growing concern. And also fracking associated, seismic activity associated directly from fracking itself in both British Columbia and Colorado. So that's not unheard of. We think the state ought to be taking a cautious approach in this matter and not just say, geez, there's all these background quakes, we trust the industry not to do anything wrong. Thank you. We support the bill.
Thank you. And as we're doing the two bills together on 1490, Mr. Rendon, are you taking the amendments?
Yes, I'm 1490. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other witnesses in support of either 1144 or 1490?
1501, sir.
I'm sorry, what do we...
1490 and 1501.
And 1501.
Mr. Chair, Justin Malone, the local environmental health director, specifically on 1490. Many of the folks know your jurisdiction's just running out of water. Certainly in Northern California, the what we call fractured rock is already having this problem. We've got 23 local jurisdictions up in Northern California that are suffering with lack of water, and we just cannot afford to have any additional activities that jeopardize our water sources. So for that reason, the Environmental Health Director support 1490. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support of AB 1501 or 1490?
This is Andrew Grimberg with Clean Water Action, and I'll focus our comments on 1501. And these comments are also on behalf of Earthworks.
And if you could be brief, we've had a number of speakers.
Yes. We support this bill. The state has not adequately monitored air quality issues, especially in the most impacted communities near oil and gas development. We did independent testing and found 15 air pollutants known to have negative effects on human health right in the communities of Lost Hills and Upper Ojai. We support increased monitoring and air permitting for oil and gas operations.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan, and I'm from Environment California, and we strongly support both AB 1501 and 1490.
Kelly Denton on behalf of California Lake Conservation Voters, and support of both bills. Thank you.
Kyle Jones, Sierra Club, California, and strong support for both bills.
Amy Trainer, Environmental Action Committee of West Marin, and strong support of both bills.
Witnesses in opposition, and I know this is unorthodox to take two bills at once, but in the interest of brevity. Is there a second on either motion? Second on both motions? Okay. Yes, we'll take the votes individually. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Brian White with KP Public Affairs, representing Western States Petroleum Association, and I'm speaking specifically today on AB 1490, which we are opposed. When the bill was first introduced, we were a little bit perplexed because there were a lot of lack of details in the bill, but we did note that the bill clearly has one particular goal, and that is to impose a de facto moratorium on well stimulation and wastewater well disposal activities until DOGGR does a report after an earthquake, or whether an earthquake is a fault is within a certain radius of the actual activity. And that's a concern for us, particularly because various news accounts have been stating that California's wastewater and well stimulation practices are the same as in Midwestern states, but that's actually not the fact. In doing so, we think that this bill sets a bad precedent. When you look at some of the other industries, such as geothermal, sanitation districts that use these type of technologies as well, well stimulation and wastewater disposal treatment, this could set a bad precedent for those technologies as well. This bill takes a precautionary principle approach about seismicity and well stimulation that has occurred in other states and tries to apply those tactics to here in California. And with all due respect, we think that it's sort of a shaky argument, no pun intended. But this is not a coincidence or a correlation argument that we should be talking about. We should be talking about causation. Well stimulation and wastewater disposal does not cause actual seismic events in California. It's well known that California has done these practices for years, actually very many years. And DOGGR has been looking at this for a long time. They even have a study that's coming out with the California Council for Technology and Science, and they're going to be coming out a report in July to look at this seismic event. So to put the cart before the horse and try and impose a de facto moratorium in statute when there's already SB4 regulations that are looking at this is actually going to do more harm than good, because it's going to burden Dogger with trying to come up with a new standard when there's already one in place, the regulations, a 2.7 magnitude standard, by the way. A 2.0, you really can't even fill that. California has a lot of history and experience with faults and earthquakes, so trying to impose this new moratorium on well stimulation and wastewater treatment disposal simply because there are other states that are doing this just doesn't hold water for California. Our geology is much different than Ohio and Oklahoma. So for those reasons, we ask for your no vote.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon,
We
Mr.
have
Chair.
2 witnesses, 2 minutes. If you guys are going to do 3, you got to do it a minute.
Well, there's 2 bills.
All right, sure. I will let you do that.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Just for you, Ed.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Am I up yet? Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. P. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Independent Petroleum Association, or CIPA. We're in opposition to AB 1490. We believe that the bill certainly falls short of its attempt to provide a sound evaluation process that will provide regulators with clarity that no well stimulation activity created or creates a heightened risk of seismic activity. The bill does set up a new paradigm that is not scientifically based, nor takes into account what is currently in statute, and does not provide one site, one credible source, scientific or otherwise, that justifies their proposals in 1490. In the bill's fact sheet, as a matter of fact, it states that scientists have connected elements of the fracturing process, especially wastewater disposal, to increase in seismic activity. But the fact sheet does not reference the scientists implicating California as a current or a potential target of seismic activity from hydraulic fracturing nor well stimulation. The information sheet goes on to say that since 2011, over 100 earthquakes of 3.0 or higher have been observed in the U.S. But again, it does not implicate California as causing any of the quakes that went on during that period. And again, members, this is the AB 1490 fact sheet that I'm referencing. As a matter of fact, the bill fails to cite any examples of California's oil and gas industry causing seismic activity and how AB 1490 resolves the issue. Instead, the bill ignores the industry's longstanding safety record on hydraulic fracturing, well stimulation in the state of California. It also ignores a study by the National Academy of Sciences that noted that hydraulic fracturing and wastewater disposal does not pose a high risk of induced seismicity, since the energy is not large enough to induce a seismic event. The bill purports to protect health and safety of California residents. However, in a state where lawsuits are filed on a regular basis, the California Earthquake Authority has not received one claim that asserts human-caused activity like hydraulic fracturing or deep well injection were the cause. The statement, and I'm closing, Mr. Chair, the statement from the CEO says the presence of a deep well injection site near a property does not affect the property's insurability.
Okay. Mr. Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Ed Manning with KP Public Affairs on behalf of WISPA on AB 1501. Several years ago, just a mere 2 years ago or 3, this legislature enacted comprehensive legislation to regulate well stimulation and fracking. The process of implementing that is ongoing, but so let me highlight for you what that regulatory effort is. First, CEQA. Right now, they're in the process of doing environmental impact report on the environmental effects, if any, of well stimulation and fracking, including the air quality impacts. Under CEQA, if there are significant impacts, they have to be mitigated. So that's one expensive, lengthy process. You're all big defenders of CEQA. CEQA is an important tool. You're using it. So why are you doing this bill? Second issue, right now, the California Resources Agency is in the process of having several studies done by Lawrence Livermore Lab and the California Science and Technology Agency. They've done volume 1 of a 4-part study. Volume 1 showed there are not based on that part of the study, significant impacts of concern. Second, they're currently doing a specific study to be published in July of this year, which looks at air quality impacts, if any. As of this date, there aren't any studies that show significant air quality impacts at all of fracking or well stimulation, and certainly none from criteria pollutants. Third, if you look at the language of SB4, which many of you voted on, it is clear that you gave the air districts, the Water Board, DTSC, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, all air pollution control districts, CUPAs, and any other agencies jurisdiction over all environmental permitting and impacts of well stimulation, including air quality. Finally, you gave the Air Board in AB 32 the ability to regulate methane, not as a criteria pollutant, as this bill would suggest, but as a greenhouse gas. They're in the process of doing that now to look if there's any impacts and regulating it. So this bill makes no sense. It's premature. You've got studies that are costing millions of dollars to be done and no proof of any environmental impacts. But why wait for the studies when you can legislate? We think you should wait. Thank you.
Other witnesses in opposition, please just state your name, organization, and opposition.
Mike Rogie with California Manufacturers and Technology Association, in opposition to both bills.
Anthony Sampson, California Chamber of Commerce, also in opposition to both.
Any other witnesses with testimony neither in support nor opposition?
P. Anthony Thomas, California Independent Petroleum Association, in opposition to AB 1501, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Questions from the or comments from the committee? Mr. Wood.
Yes, Mr. Rendon, this specifically with respect to 1490, and thank you for bringing both bills. My concern is that in the district I represent, we have significant geothermal wells that generates a lot of renewable energy. And so as I read this, we also have seismic activity. It's very, very consistent up there, has been forever, which is why the steam fields exist anyway. So my concern is that, as written, it appears that, and the reason I bring this up is that we directly inject wastewater into the wells as a way to further stimulate the wells to produce steam. So my concern is, does this, as I read it, looks like it would affect our geothermal power plants in my district. So have you given that some thought? Thank you, Mr. Wood, and thanks for bringing this to my attention. We met with Calpine last week, which I think provides the power source that you're referring to. This is not intended to impact geysers or those sorts of the types of geothermal power sources that impact your district. It was a little. Calpine offered us some amendments, and we intend to take them after the next committee. Okay. Or I should say after this committee. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Stone, and then Mr. Harper.
Mr. Rendon, I'd like to thank you for keeping this very, very important issue in front of the legislature so that we can continue to have conversations about it and reflect most of our constituents in California who remain very, very concerned about fracking and oil and well stimulation. And I'd like to be added on both bills as a co-author, if I could.
Thank you.
Mr. Harper.
Thank you very much. Assemblymember Wood brings up a point in relation to geysers, but in relation to petroleum extraction, of course, a lot of our fields of oil are associated with earthquake fault zones. Locally, Newport Englewood Fault. In the old days, they called it earthquake oil because it was easier to find oil in locations where fault zones were. How does this fit in with locations where earthquakes are prevalent long before there was petroleum extraction?
Sure. Do you want to touch on that? You were just talking about.
Yeah. First, on the other question raised on geothermal injection, that's not a Class 2 type well. These would relate just to the Class 2 wells, which is injection of wastewater or for enhanced oil recovery, not for geothermal. On your question, oil drilling has been around since the late 1800s, starting in Mendocino, Humboldt County, and then in Los Angeles and Kern County. We weren't doing seismology then, so I don't think you can answer the question of what was the effect of oil drilling before we were actually measuring, Weren't these things already occurring all along? I don't think that you can answer that, unless I misunderstood your question.
In my local area, you can go back to Indian accounts in terms of how long earthquakes have been associated with my part of Orange County. So it goes well beyond petroleum extraction, which started in 1920 in our local area.
I understand what you mean. Obviously, there's records of earthquakes that go back into the medieval ages.
Yep.
But is there any measurement of whether oil exploration and production has affected it? I don't think the state has been looking. That's the point of the bill, is that this would say, let's look at specifically what happens when you do this, rather than assume an attitude it's all background noise, where it's 2.0s and 3.5s all the time in California. So if they're causing some little ones, so what? We have those all the time. And that's the point of the bill. So let's find out what they are causing or could be associated with.
Other comments or questions from the committee? The chair, we're going to have to redo the motions just so that we make sure that we keep them separate. Chair's recommendation on 1490 is aye. USGS has found a connection between oil and gas activity and increased seismicity in Colorado, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Ohio. It's not just Ohio. These are very different geological formations. It is enough for us to be taking action here. And I got to say, the logic of saying there's been earthquakes for a long time, therefore this is not affecting earthquakes, is like saying there's been people, the fact that there's been people dying for a long time means that car accidents don't cause death. It's a spurious argument to say just because earthquakes has been going for thousands of years. Other comments or questions from the committee?
If I can,
Sure.
respectfully. The issue here is that what this does is it shuts down petroleum extraction activity every time that there's a 2.5 earthquake. And you have areas which have had earthquake activity perpetually, for as long as there's been human records. And so the question is how often should we be shutting down petroleum extraction activity? And this looks very excessive.
Other comments or questions? Chair's recommendation on 1490 is aye. Do you want to retake the motion? Motion by Stones, second by McCarty. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
No.
Dolly, no. Garcia? Hadley?
No.
Hadley, no. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye. It's got 5.
Got 5 votes. And how about a motion on 1501? And do you wish to close?
Respectfully ask for your aye votes.
Motion by Stone, second by McCarty. On 1501, Chair's recommendation is aye.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
No.
Dolly, no. Garcia? Hadley?
No.
Hadley, no. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
5 votes. And we will take the next in sign-in order is Mr. Alejo. He's still here. Oh, you have one more bill, Mr.
One more.
Rendon.
Is that
Sorry.
okay? Can I do it now?
Psych.
We're going to be quick. I'm chairing a committee starting in 3 minutes, so we're going to AB 1140.
Motion by Dolly, second by Stone.
Respectfully ask for your aye vote on AB 1144.
Witnesses in support, briefly.
Very brief, Mr. Chair and members. Mike Dillon, representing the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, a sponsor of the bill. Urge your support. Thank you.
Sharon Green, Sanitation Districts of Los Angeles County, also here in support.
Other witnesses in support? Witnesses in support, hustle up here.
Nick Papa, Southern California Edison, also in support. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Support, Mr. Chair. Mario DiBernardo from the Northern California Power Agency. We support the bill in concept. We're working with the author on a very technical amendment. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition? To the committee. Chair's recommendation as aye. UNC starts in 1 minute ago. We had a motion and a second.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
Aye.
Dolly, aye. Garcia? Hadley? Aye. Hadley, aye. Harper? Aye. Harper, aye. McCarty? Aye. McCarty, aye. Rendon?
Aye.
Rendon, aye. Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood? Aye. Wood, aye.
Thank you, member.
8 votes. Your bill is out. Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm trying to get my witnesses through the crowd, but I would like to open by thanking the committee and its staff for working with my office on this bill. And through the collaboration, I'm grateful to be able to accept as author amendments those amendments outlined in the committee analysis. With those amendments, this bill, AB 1447, will do 3 important things. First of all, it will establish a minimum recycling content standard of 10% for all PET plastic beverage and food containers made or filled in California. Second, it would require PET plastic beverage and food container manufacturers and California importers to report to Cal Recycling on their use of virgin or post-filled plastic feedstock. And lastly, it will establish certification reporting and enforcement provisions to enable Cal Recycle to enforce the bill's requirements. Members, this bill will increase recycling, support in-state recycling and manufacturing, and increase the amount of products available to California consumers containing recycled content. Here with me today to speak on behalf of this bill is Leon Fernick of the California Plastic Recyclers Coalition, Mark Murray of Californians Against Waste, and John McKernan with Peninsula Packaging, one of the state's largest users of recycled drink containers, and is located in my district. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this bill today.
Okay. Our rules are 2 witnesses for 2 minutes, so you're going to have to split 4 minutes between 3 of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and the committee. My name is John McKernan. I'm President and CEO of Peninsula Packaging. We're a California-based company with large facilities in Hollister, California, and Exeter, California. We have about 425 full-time associates in our business. Our primary business is rigid PET produce packaging, which you see some examples in front of me. Our major customers are people like Driscoll's and Dole and Taylor Farms. Today I'm speaking on behalf of this bill. Our company has been and continues to be a large user of recycled PET. In fact, all the containers in front of you are 100% recycled plastics. This is happening now. This is safe. It's hitting the triple bottom line for us. There's been economic advantages. There's great advantage from the standpoint of keeping things out of landfill. This bill, up until now, has created and will continue to create green jobs. And we are probably one of the lead advocates of using recycled materials in the state today, and we will be. So, why have the mandatory recycled content law, and what might the implications be? For us, we believe that having the minimum recycled content law will, number one, bring back some material that's currently being shipped to China from our state, and secondly, ultimately will increase the size of the pool so that we'll be able to pull more raw materials, and more rigid PET packaging will ultimately be recycled. We support the initiative because, number one, we know that our recyclers, there's plenty of capacity. Roughly the industry is 60 to 70% utilized. I have concerns, particularly in light of the cost of oil today and the cost of virgin PET, about the viability of our supply chain long term. And secondly, we believe it's the right thing to do to create a larger pool. Maybe there's some problems getting this happening over the next couple of 3 years, but those are changes that need to happen, and we believe this bill will push us in that right direction. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello. Thank you for doing it voluntarily, Art.
Good afternoon, Chairman Williams and honored assembly members. My name is Leon Fernick. I'm Chairman CEO of Carbon Light Industries. We recycle over 2 billion beverage bottles per year and save over 60,000 tons of carbon footprint per year in state of California. We employ 135 people in our Riverside facility, and we have invested over $60 million in private investment and have created the largest recycling facility in the United States, supplying companies like Pepsi and Nestle with post-consumer resin that is used in manufacture of some of their brands with 100% post-consumer content, like Naked Juice and Resource Water, and 50% in Arrowhead 16-ounce bottles. Today, majority of recyclers in California are running at 70 to 75% of capacity, and at the same time battling the decline of virgin raw material. Today, all California beverage recyclers are suffering financially. Therefore, in order to stabilize post-consumer plastic markets, level the playing field for those companies already using post-consumer resins, and fully realize all of the inherent environmental benefits of recycled content, and promote job growth and investment, California Recyclers advocates the implementation of a 10% minimum mandatory post-consumer content legislation for all rigid plastic packaging that is produced or filled in state of California. In closing, I just want to say California has led the nation in recycling of beverage containers, so please keep recycling alive by passing this content law. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Mark Murray with the Environmental Group Californians Against Waste. You've heard from the private sector guys. These guys want an even playing field. They want support in the marketplace for the investments that they've already made. This is minimum recycled content is the way that California has always provided that balance between supply and demand. We've had recycled content for glass containers, newsprint, and last year this legislature passed minimum content on paper bags and reusable bags. Urge an aye vote on this.
Thank you. And further witnesses, just state your name, affiliation, and support. And if you have not seen his video, he does not look like a rock star, but one of the witnesses has a very good video for their facility. You should check it out.
Mr. Chair and members, Erin Niemela representing Replanet, also in support of the bill.
Paula Treat on behalf of California Plastics Recyclers Coalition. That's 12 of the largest recyclers in the state, wholeheartedly supporting. And the video is Carbon Light on YouTube.
Mr. Chairman, members, Josh Pane on behalf of the California Refuse Recycling Council in support, and we look forward to working with the author on encompassing other types of products like this too.
Mr. Chairman. Josh Malone for Stop Waste, the Alameda County Waste Management Authority, in strong support.
Witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman and members, Ralph Simoni representing both the Plastic Recycling Corporation of California and the California-Nevada Beverage Association. Let me first say that we commend the proponents and the items that they displayed before you, but let me just say that thermoform packaging is extremely different than packaging for food and beverage products. It doesn't have the same parameters with regards to hot fill, the same parameters with regards to carbonation, and the specs for products like food and beverages, and this is the way the containers actually start, are much more exacting than that. As a matter of fact, what was displayed before you comes from a supply agreement, by and large, with the Plastic Recycling Corporation of California. And oddly enough, the specs of those people who are making those thermoforms don't want those thermoforms back in those bales that they receive from us. Just a couple of comments, I think, of importance. The distribution chain of food and beverage commodities and the supply chain for beverage containers is not bound by California's state boundaries. It is statewide, it is regional, it is national, and at times it is global in nature with regards to where containers come from. So these are this is the beginning of life of a soft drink container. Many soft drink manufacturers will, in fact, buy these in Texas, bring them in large boxes, heat them, blow mold them for whatever product it is. So this would have significant ramifications for those manufacturers who have out-of-state packaging. I don't know.
Ralph, you got to wrap up.
Yeah. I did a little random inventory of my refrigerator. Here are some of the national brand products. Let me just one comment on behalf of the PRCC, if I might. We handle about 35% of all beverage containers in the state. Only about 75, well, excuse me, 20 to 25% are offshored, and that's the poorest quality. We're giving the best quality material to the in-state reclaimers.
Thank you.
And we oppose the bill.
Mr. Chairman and members, Tim Shestak on behalf of the American Chemistry Council. We certainly support efforts to increase recycling and increase the use of post-consumer and post-industrial material. I won't reiterate the points that Mr. Simone made. There are a couple of questions of why we're opposed to the bill that have surfaced. We're questioning whether or not, if this mandate were to be enacted, whether there is sufficient material in the marketplace to meet the new demands of this material or this requirement. And then secondly, there are some recommendations that have been made to enhance recycling, and one of those, as the committee may know, the CalRecycle currently implements the rigid plastic packaging container law. It's been on the books for several years. Recently, the program was amended with some new regulations, adding over 350 million new plastic containers to requirement that they contain post-consumer recycled material, be source reduced, or be reusable or refillable. We understand CalRecycle is looking for additional resources to ensure that that program is enforced on a consistent basis. We think that's the appropriate way to go, and for those reasons we currently urge a no vote, but looking forward to working with the author on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further witnesses in opposition, just state your name, organization, and your opposition. And come on up. There's 2 mics ready to go.
Mike Robeson, our client, the Glass Packaging Institute, has a letter on file in opposition, but with the amendments that the author took, we remove our opposition.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Joe Ack.
This one here.
Mr. Chair, members, Joe Ackler on behalf of SPI, the Plastics Industry Trade Association, are also opposed.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Angie Minetti with the California Retailers Association. Also have some concerns with the bill. We're not opposed, but we do feel that mandating this amount of recycled content may not be suitable for all applications, and we're looking forward to working with the author to address some of our concerns. We're hopeful that we can come to a solution.
Thank you. To the committee. Motion by Stone, second by Wood. Comments, questions? Chair's recommendation as aye. There is definitely underutilized potential of recycling, especially recycling domestically in this sector, and this will go some way to being able to solve that. Would you like to close?
Yes, if I may just give a few minutes to Mark Murray, just to rebut some of the concerns that were raised here.
We allow closes for members, not for non-members.
With that said, if that,
and I think we got it.
Okay, sounds good. Well,
okay.
First of all, members, and I thank the chairman for this committee, because with the amendments it did remove a lot of the opposition. Secondly, this sets a minimum standard only of 10%, and it's only to get to parity what we do with other recycled in other areas. We already have standards at 35% for recycled content in glass containers, 25% for recycled content for rigid plastic containers, 30% plastic content for fiberglass, and this is doing a minimum of 10% in this particular area. We think this is a good bill. We'll bring jobs back to California, recycle more. Those are all good goals. It's a win-win for California. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Chair's recommendation is aye. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly?
No.
Dolly, no. Garcia? Hadley?
No.
Hadley, no. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? Rendon? Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
UNC is going at the same time. There will be members back. We'll leave it on call. Thank you. Mr. Gray?